One more sigh. What up, Brandon Rockers? Be a lot of pauses today. Nickelback, or as I liked to have called them for a while, NICKELCRACK, given that they're just so much like your dirty 5-cent crack cocaine. Now, I've never had this, but more than likely, they're equivalent to a possible cheap-ass $5 to 5-cent level of crack cocaine. So damn dirty and cheap and just so awful that by the time you already put the syringe on your skin, you may as well have already infected, might as well have poured off sulfuric acid on top of you or something. Oof. That's how Nickelback has been, or NICKELCRACK. That's what NICKELCRACK has been, basically, since from the Silver Side up to their last album, No Fixed Address. And usually I just wind up getting these albums for my mother, who for some reason likes them. Usually, at times, she knows what good quality is, and usually she doesn't. Of course, she also likes listening to country in anything from the mainstream, and nothing of the outlaw. People forget that good country did consist of having some twang. Some actual twang. There's a point where I get it when it comes to twang. Sometimes there's too much, but sometimes it's like cowbell, you know. When it comes to twang for country people, it's definitely like the cowbell. They got a fever for twang, and they just can't help themselves. These are lessons that you must learn when it comes to what good country is. Hell, it wasn't, country hasn't been that good, especially when, Nickelback videos are featured on CMT. Or NICKELCRACK, I'm sorry, in that regard. The real question is, can this NICKELCRACK joke that is probably an inside joke to anyone who watches this channel or has known about me talking about that kind of smack? Well, I could call him Nickel Smack, but it's... I think I'm sticking with NICKELCRACK. I've stuck with it long enough, I may as well. But the real question is the meme done? Is the joke done? Well, first things first, the title track. This fucker rocks. That fucker rocks. God. Finally, something competent. And you wonder why I left this album here, because it's the last time the band ever really had something good that had potential. And, all they needed was some polish and, some actual growth in musicianship. The band never really truly grew in musicianship, but they did bring in some polish. And it seemed like the polish they used too much of just to overcompensate for their lack of musicianship that they were no longer bringing to the table. Well, since The State, of course, which is the only album I would probably recommend, and that's when I will really say the name Nickelback and not NICKELCRACK. The real question is does this album make me feel good enough to start calling them Nickelback and not NICKELCRACK? Well, it's a good start on the right track. Especially given the title track. And, I don't even know if I should even say anything. I would rather recommend looking up, Googling, more than likely you will probably do, or ask Siri if you have an iPhone. I don't care for iPhones all that much at this point. Even though my girlfriend has one, I try to deal with it, I guess. Which she's lovely. She's doing fine, in case some of you out there are curious and care. No, not enough to where we're just calling her Random Rita now, just so you know. We've made our own decision since we don't have the patience to deal with you guys not answering us. So yeah, this album is just fucking. I originally was not going to review this album. I was told it was just another typical run-of-the-mill wank fest from the band, another NICKELCRACK. And then I heard one reviewer say otherwise, and was surprised that he liked this album, given that he himself is kind of in the majority of the haters, or the people who know that they are the cool band to hate, as they've always been, and they've even joked and even the band themselves apparently poke fun at themselves, and sometimes they're apparently nice of guys' charity, even though recently Chad has kind of gained a bit of an ego and decided to go after, of all people, Corey Taylor of Slipknot and Stone Sour, even to the point of calling Stone Sour Nickelback Light. Dumb. And now he's kind of... Corey retaliated, though it doesn't seem like Corey's retaliation was really nearly as to the point as Chad's, but yeah, that's just some crazy bullshit there. Whatever. I wish Corey Taylor didn't even respond, especially given that it's gonna be like this coming week. That I think this week or the week following, or in the first week of July, I think, is when the new Stone Sour album is supposed to come out. I don't know if I'm really reviewing that one. I'm debating on it myself. I'm almost because of this incident with Chad and Corey, I'm almost half tempted to buy this album just to see if their album winds up being somehow better than this. But given what we've gotten from this album, I'd almost want to say good luck to you, Corey, and the rest of Stone Sour, even without Jim Root now no longer in the band. So, yeah, doesn't bring in much confidence either here. Even though I agree with the fact that Nickelback Light is kind of stupid. Like, if you're light on what Nickelback does, and you're heavier on what you kind of done with your stuff with Slipknot, I think that's fine. That's, I guess, not a terrible comparison, but it's kind of a dumb one anyway. Chad, come on, man. Jesus. Well, anyway, as far as I'm concerned, the title track, I mean, is somewhat politically charged. Another track on here is Silent Majority that does that. That's a little deeper into the track listing, though. And as far as I'm concerned, the opening title track this album is actually, for the most part, quite heavy. In an enjoyable, tolerable way. Like, in my opinion, I feel like this album could have worked as a better follow-up to Dark Horse, which is the last album I bothered to listen to. That was back when I was naive and stupid, when it came to what good music actually is. And some people still probably question me because of how I am about 3 Years Down and whatnot here and there, especially with my recent review, even though there are actually some people who liked what I had to say. Then, thanks, guys. Props on that. Even though I still prefer the first 3 albums when it comes to 3 Years Down, and I probably prefer Creed over Nickelback, though Nickelback's one of those few bands of, like, what is considered the Triforce of Suckage, them, Creed, and Limp Bizkit, though I wouldn't really put Limp Bizkit anywhere near Creed at this point. And as of this album, I wouldn't even put them anywhere near this band. Because, at least, they've tried to at least make one decent album, and now they finally, or at least somewhat good to somewhat solid, release. Not great by any means, but for what it is, it's it's actually kind of pretty good. And this album, like that, for what it is actually surprisingly, this is our surprise of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Are far bigger than what Chevelle did, far bigger than what 10 Years did, because we already knew those bands were actually good. This was a band that, well, was good or had potential to be great, and then shit the bed. And their idea of greatness was more in the moolah and making it rain, all that kind of bullshit. And that part panned out for them better than, well, making good quality. It was quantity clearly more than quality, and yeah, it shows on this album. And on this album, quality seems to show up a little bit more. And it's not Sense of State, though. This album could have followed up Dark Horse, given the fact that this is more of a rock record and as opposed to sort of a pop record, like Here and Now and the No Fixed Address albums seem to have come across as, or at least from what little glimpses I may have heard my mom playing when I gave them those albums for Christmas. And she might get this one for Christmas, but I'm going to try to, I guess, for what I've heard of this album, enjoy it while I can, and hopefully give this to you guys as maybe a recommendation in an honorable mention kind of way, as opposed to a dishonorable, which I don't really do dishonorables. I like to say the shit, and let's forget about it. Don't we all, you know? And this album isn't worth forgetting about. I mean, Corn for Ferryman, I mean, Feed the Machine thus far has been For the River, The Betrayal Act 3. Act 1's not bad for at least being an instrumental. I wouldn't call it's almost in the acoustic way that comes off like a Metallica Led Zeppelin-y kind of thing. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's that masterclass per se, but yeah. The weaker songs to me, well, for the most part, it's definitely Must Be Nice. That one is typical, in the bad way, Nickelback. If you could just get rid of that track, I think, honestly, this album would have been a lot better. Hell, if they even recorded an Act 2 for The Betrayal, because apparently there's an Act 3 here and an Act 1, and it's not even in the right order. That's also a big misstep for this band. Which shouldn't be a surprise how many missteps they've had. Even when they try to do something good, you know, they're going to find some way to try to fuck it up. But, you know, they've done enough good on this album that even with some of those little fuck-ups, I mean, the pros outweigh the cons somehow with this record. It's, for the most part, that's just surprising. And one song I didn't originally like, but now with this album in context, I actually kind of wound up liking Song on Fire, and I think it's kind of based around where he's feeling about after his divorce with Avril Lavigne, I guess? Or at least it seems to be the case, and it's not a bad song for being one of their softer ones, and at least it has comes off differently than most of their usual softer songs, whereas tracks that follow up, like maybe After the Rain or Home, and maybe even like Every Time We're Together, some will come off more typical of the band, but in a way that's like on the more tolerable side, but not in that, I guess you would say. And I mean, I'm not like hating myself and wanting to choke myself out listening to it. But Betrayal Act 3, which I guess is about Judas, I mean, there's not much, I mean, it's still like, given the circumstances of what that song is about and what it led to, I guess, in terms of that particular story, or at least from what we know of what his betrayal had done to Jesus. Yeah, but I could see why Betrayal Act 3 works. It's a heavy enough subject matter that the heaviness that comes from the song eventually kind of really works. And Silent Majority doesn't, I mean, I'm glad Silent Majority did follow that track up, but I don't understand why they. And the fact there's no Act 2, I don't know what the plan was. A smaller but bigger, small reviewer, but far bigger than me at this point. Given how he just started this year and he's doing pretty well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong at this point. I'm still doing what I've normally done, but whatever. Betrayal Act is figuring out where the Betrayal Act 2 is. What track on here might qualify as Betrayal Act 2, you know? Or maybe a couple tracks mixed together, or in concept mixed together, maybe make up Betrayal Act 2 or something. I don't know at this point. Or maybe they should have just called the last track Acts 1 and 2. I'm not entirely sure what, if they just left off Act 2 or for on purpose, or if it's floating around somewhere in the ethers. I'm not sure. But overall, what we do get of the Betrayal is between Acts 3 and 1 is actually pretty good. It's just a shame that of the way the tracks are kind of listed here. Now, it does kind of go good. Not so bad. I guess in a way, Act 1 works where it's at, going back into Feed the Machine to a degree. But that's still debatable here and there. But again, guys, overall, I'm surprised I liked this album. I mean, though I will say, if there is a track on here to skip, for sure, it would be Must Be Nice. For sure. I mean, in a way, For the River is kind of typical heavy nail, but it's at least a step above to a degree from a lyrical perspective. It seems like a little step above Coin for the Ferryman, but I wouldn't put it anywhere near Feed the Machine, or even Silent Majority, or the Betrayal Act 3 at this point, in terms of the way they handle themselves. But yeah, so far, Feed the Machine. I kind of put Coin and Ferryman somewhere between a meh and it's more okay, alright. It went to meh to a degree, I guess. It's serviceable, basically. Whereas After the Rain's kind of serviceable. At least after Must Be Nice, it seems more refreshing, I guess. For the River makes up for that. Home is interesting, I guess, for what it is. It's definitely a little darker, I guess, than some of their past albums. Definitely darker than Dark Horse. And heavier, for sure. Especially on the production side. It does seem like maybe some of the things they might have done in the last couple albums, or at least maybe, hopefully, more Here and Now and less of No Fixed Address. At least, maybe, from some of the things that happened in this album. But again, the pros outweigh the cons on this thing, which is something that should be a good surprise and pleasant surprise from this band. And overall, I can't believe I'm actually curious enough to want to listen to this album again and not want to choke myself out listening to it. Or, like most people would have to listen to Nickelback. Because I say I got my nickel back. Eh? No? Alright then. And yeah. Given Must Be Nice and all this stuff, it's borderlining somewhere in the thumbs up category, but I would give it more in the positive to mixed kind of way. Like, pretty well my thumbs up, it's kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing right here. Well, I wouldn't, it fit with at this point, it's definitely better than the AFI album. And it's definitely somewhat better than Art of Anarchy. Or maybe on par, but I'm just as surprised as you guys, you know? I think we have to wait 17 fucking years for them to actually make something good, guys. Like, genuinely, something kind of good. Even given what they've kind of built themselves up off of. You know? And apparently for some, when it comes to even their shows, I guess, for what I've heard, they try to put on a good show for their fans. So, I guess Mom kind of has seen them, I guess. So, she was satisfied, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah. Overall, guys, the new Nickelback album, what'd you think? Or did you just think that that they're still technically NICKELCRACK to you? And to some degree, I kind of wouldn't blame you, but, you know, I was surprised that I would wind up actually liking this album, I guess. But also not surprised given my past, I guess. But I wanted a reason to bother to listen to one of them and, you know, at least want to recommend it and review the damn thing. And I got something good out of it. And that's only at the first listen. I'm surprised I want to bother to try to go back to this album and soak up what good is of this album that I can. Fuck, I want to learn the Feed the Machine riff, if that says anything to you guys. I mean, I'm just as surprised. I'm going to get probably a lot of hate from haters, but fuck you. You know? I at least noticed that there was at least moments maybe in the past that weren't super bad. They were, like, at least they had some ideas, but they just didn't know how to properly execute it, and they were just more worried about making more radio-friendly stuff, and now they don't care as much about that anymore, it seems, from this record. And maybe if they keep this up, we might actually get a full album that's actually all good songs. I hope they can do that and not fall back to the wayside of what they've done the past couple of albums, and maybe even Dark Horse and what they've already done within the past 17 years or so. Everything since probably Silver Side Up at this point. What did you guys think? Come below, let me know again. Rock that like button with thrust if you must. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. And I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Might be Homecoming, might be movie stuff mostly throughout July. Yeah. Might not have anything interesting to talk about till August. Especially if it's involving Steven Wilson, Queens of Stone Age, and then by September, Foo Fighters. Though after that, I'm not entirely sure what else. I just have to look around and find some surprises, I guess. Or that are probably less obvious than what this one album was. So, it's another long one, and, you know, talking about this band, of course it's going to be long-winded. Would you blame me? Again, guys, just, if I have to recommend anything from them, of their earlier releases, like in the 90s at least, it would have been The State. Leader of Men, for sure, was definitely a popular track for them then. Not as much as it has been since How You Remind Me, and so on and so forth. On that. But yeah. I'm just... I suck at any videos, but, you know, learn to live with what you can't, you know? Keep it, once again, for the final time, hopefully, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. And see you in the next video. Take care, y'all. Actually, check this out. I'm not kidding.